Today on Restauranttopia, Anthony Hamilton is going to do a deep dive on front of house versus back of house, the great divide. Get ready to have your mind blown. This has been a controversy since the beginning of the first restaurant.
Imagine a perfect world where you can build a restaurant, open the doors, and make loads of money. Unfortunately, those days are over. It takes great leadership, hard work, and long hours to operate a successful restaurant. Together, we can make it happen. This is Restauranttopia.
I'm jazzed up and super excited about this episode because I think from the first time we decided to do a podcast to go out and really help, restaurateurs, this has been something that's been on my mind to do. And I know you're the best one to do it because you've actually lived it. But this divide is real. It's significant, and it needs to be talked about.
We talk about it all the time, and we dance around it like
we accept it.
It's like ingrained in the staff's mind that there is this divide, and whether it's the order's slow and the person had to wait for it, and the server goes, "Oh, the kitchen's always slow," or "Saturdays are always tough for the kitchen." Like we're all on the same team.
I know you're jacked up for this. I got to ask you one question though. This has been on my mind, and I don't know why I've never asked you this, but it just came into my mind. You've got a GM of the restaurant, okay, and you've got a chef.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the chef report to the GM?
In most scenarios, yeah.
Okay, so why in most scenarios, I shouldn't say most scenarios, but a lot of times I see this GM who's like, okay, I'm front of the house, I'm handling this, and then when something comes up the kitchen, he's like, oh, that's the chef. Like, I can't talk to the chef. Like, he's got it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, because front of the house is a bunch of slimy salesmen.
Okay. There we go. All right.
Now we get it.
Okay. So how do you really feel?
This is going to be better than I thought. Go ahead. Let it rip,
I'm not biased at all. So true story. Fun fact: the very first restaurant was brought on by a guy named Boulanger after the French Revolution, and the guild systems fell. And then he opened up his inn, and he actually served food for money and gave people a choice. You know what the first dish was served at his restaurant?
No.
Sheep's feet and white sauce.
Not making that at home.
No. Fun fact, though. You expect it to be something more grandiose, but it was. So, listen, this is a topic I've been wanting to talk about as well, Dave, and I appreciate you being excited, and Brian as well. I don't think this is limited to restaurants, though. And I'm going to draw an analogy to the organization that we spend time with. It's a sales organization, right? So what happens is you have these people that are naturally siloed. On one hand, you have a sales organization out there dealing with customers, making promises to customers. And then a completely separate entity has to fulfill those, or at least a majority of those promises. So right there, I think you have a natural divide because you have people speaking for your work, people promising things that you're going to do. How does it make you feel as a human? Like if your significant other out there is saying, "Oh, my husband will mow your yard, no problem," right? No problem. "Oh, by the way, honey, you need to go mow the Thompson's yard." Like, how would you feel about that? Like, I'd be pissed, right? Like, and that's how we get in the workplace.
Depends on what she quoted.
But the problem is she gets the money, not you.
Okay.
Right? She gets a commission. She gets the tips. You get nothing. You just get your normal wage and your normal thank you. Nothing above and beyond for you, but yet you have to put in more hours.
The great divide.
That's it, man. That's it. So I appreciate that. And that's why it happens. Look, I don't know that it needs to be more complicated. That certainly there's a lot more to that dynamic. But quite frankly, that's what I see, and that's what I have seen. And listen, I've been on both sides of this. I've helped perpetuate this divide, then I've helped bridge this divide. So I kind of, know a little way around it. But we ask ourselves the why, and why ultimately interdependent. I mean, these departments, as Brian, what you said is they're the same team. We're all here serving the same goal. We should have the same company mission, but we fail to see it. And so you have these two departments that are interdependent. They rely on each other. One can't function without the other, but then they're incredibly independent in their own operations, whether they're cooking orders. There's a divide there, and it happens to be the expo station. Yeah. That line that we create where the prep coolers meet the garnish station, there's a natural division there. And it's funny because the type of people you get to are incredibly different. Like, look it up one time. Just Google, like, front of the house versus back of the house, and the memes are hilarious. Like, one of them I saw, it was like a bunch of people well-dressed in ties, and that's front of the house. And in the back of the house was like the cast of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, they're all like surly pirates and gritty as hell and stuff. But that's the way it's been in every restaurant I've ever worked in. It's not.
Brian, you got to find a good one and put in the show notes.
Yeah. No, I'll dig one up for you because it literally, I looked them up because it took me like 2 minutes, and all of them are funny. But they embody.
But they're funny because they're funny
because
there's
it's
some
true.
reality to it.
But then I look at it and say, oh my God, like if I can Google this and there's 10,000 memes and all of them are quality memes, which means a lot of people are contributing to this meme factory. Yeah. Everybody's aware of this. This is a widespread problem. Who's doing anything to fix it?
Well,
Restauranttopia.
There you go. I think you have to, as any well-run organization, cannot have this divide. I'm telling you, you're fighting against Chipotle Olive Garden, all these big national chains out there that they don't care about the divide between the front and the back of the house because they're trying to beat up on you and take your customers. You need to be above and beyond as a unit together, providing amazing hospitality to the customer.
Yeah, I mean, they still have that divide, but you're right.
I know, but they have systems in place to
work around it,
mitigate it. So they know it exists and they work around it. And again, we're not talking a culinary expert that knows how to put chicken parm in a microwave for 2 minutes.
I was just gonna say that. Like the back of the house at Applebee's is like so mad because you're like, yeah, you guys up front, you get to dress nice and you get to carry these tablets around, and I got to push buttons on a microwave.
Exactly. You know how many plastic bags of food I had to open up and
My hands
heat?
are calloused from the scissors of opening frozen bags.
Yes.
I'm gonna say even an Applebee's kitchen work is harder than that. I'm just gonna go. I mean, that's not all they do. They still
We might be exaggerating slightly,
right?
Yeah.
So
I had to do 2 scoops of slop. Why are you promising Why are you promising extra slop to the customers out front?
I already have to do 2. I protest 3 scoops.
I'm gonna get carpal tunnel.
I'm smoking a cigarette. I'm going out back.
We'll give us 5 minutes. We'll be done.
Yeah. This microwave is giving me carpal tunnel.
Okay, we done?
Yeah, I think so.
Glad to hear it. No, that was a good little
Probably
rundown.
not. But
Yeah. But we talk about the why a lot, right? And I talk about that normal divide right in the middle of the restaurant. And you guys have seen it almost every full service restaurant you go to. But it's funny because the perceptions are so much different of what each department has to deal with. Front of the house has to deal with customers. They make promises, and then they get the credit for success by way of tips, commissions, and compliments, right?
Yeah.
The back of the house gets no say on what's promised whatsoever. People are writing checks for them, and they have to fulfill them in a timely manner, and they generally don't get a lot of credit. And by way of tips or commission, they get nothing extra. They might get a thank you if they're lucky, right? So you have this thankless job. And then you have this person out there in the beginning. This is perception. The back of the house looks at this person, dressed nice, staying clean, out there making promises, kissing babies, giving hugs, shaking hands, that sort of thing, and making promises that they can't fulfill, and then they get money. Yeah, they get rewarded for it. Like, oh, you promised something else. So there's this just natural built-in kind of resentment, right? FOH makes more money and stays clean. Back of the house makes less money and has a dirty job, right? FOH enjoys flexibility in schedule and works less hours typically. Back of the house gets ground down. Long weeks, doubles, all that sort of thing. Front of the house perceives back of the house as an artistic playground, snacks and freedom to be themselves, right? And then back of the house perceives front of the house as an air-conditioned beauty pageant full of smiles and loads of cash and no stress. But the fact is they're both damn hard, right?
Oh,
the perceptions are so wrong. We look at that again. I just wanted to run through those because those are things that I truly believe or people I know truly believe, and it goes both ways. And certainly it's at the back of the house slant because I'm back of the house. But when I moved into more of an administrative role, a leadership role, I realized that both jobs are damn hard. Like being a server, I mean, we all know being a cook's hard. You're working down in the trenches, you're cutting yourself, you're burning yourself. It's high pressure, high intensity. But serving is no joke either. No. And the better the server is, the more effortless they make it look. But imagine being in a bad mood. Let's say I don't know, let's get a little dark here. Like say your grandma died like last week, right? Yeah. Or maybe a couple days ago, and it's time for you're past bereavement, it's time for you to go back to work, but she's still on your mind because she's very important to you. You have to go give amazing customer service to people all day long. Do you know how hard that shit is?
It is emotionally draining and taxing on a person. And again, especially if you have some sort of life trauma and life event like that, but to be on your game. I know when I go and I have 3 or 4 meetings during the day versus just sitting at my computer, knocking out documents, it is so intense. I'm exhausted at the end of the day because I got to be 100% on, 100% engaged. That's what a server is doing all day long.
It's a show. They're actors.
An actor acting like they care, dealing with customers who, not acting like they care, but, showing that they care, and dealing with customers that may rightfully or wrongfully be upset.
Yeah, no question. And we didn't even talk about dealing with angry customers yet.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just going to say, let me throw a life preserver to some of our front of the house people. When the steak's overcooked, who has to handle that with the customer? You know what I mean? That's, so it goes.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. The reality is they're both very hard jobs.
Yep.
Very different, but both very complicated and hard and take skill.
And the phrase "don't shoot the messenger" That's for a reason.
The messenger gets assassinated.
Every time.
Every single time. But we got to have someone to take our aggression out of, right? Like whether it's their fault or not, it's their fault for not managing the table properly and the cooks on hold and the servers and everything else. But, really what it comes down to is front of the house constantly running food, clearing tables, dealing with the interpersonal dynamics we talked about is incredibly exhausting and taxing. They got to tolerate surly speech, sometimes abusive behaviors. Again, I'm going down this path. I just want to reiterate how hard both jobs are, and I don't think we give enough credit to the servers for having that hard job because of the aforementioned stuff of short shifts and more money and yada, yada, yada. The fact is, everybody works at the same restaurant, right? So what you said earlier is like my biggest pet peeve.
What's that?
Like you go there and it's like they didn't write down my order, right? I know you love that one. I got pink eye from the bathroom. And they didn't write down my order. So I'm sitting there and my steak's taking forever. And the server comes to my table and says, the kitchen's really behind tonight. Or I don't know what happened in the kitchen. They must have missed that order. I'm so sorry. That rocks me to my core. I can tell you a lot about your organization if I hear that, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you if you're jointed or disjointed, like right off the rip with that question, right? So I guess that leads to it. How do we fix this divide that's occurred since the dawn of history? And it's not just restaurants. Again, we deal with it at Hillcrest all the time too. It's the same thing. You got front and back of the house very clearly defined there.
Yeah. I mean, you got sales professionals, and then you have delivery people, order pickers. You have a huge organization,
purchasing, finance. You have all these people that are supporting the sales force. That are, again, cooking the steak the way they want it because that's the way they.
Well, they're out making promises to customers because that's what bodes well for the company. Yeah. The big problem you have here, though, is I was thinking about this on the drive in today. I was like, my God, is you have this ultimate conflict of interest there. There's a tremendous conflict of interest in this whole mechanism. The sales team's out making promises to the customers. Are they doing right by the company, or are they interested in making more tips? Yeah. See, that's a different distinction, right? Because
you have some real life experience into that. I don't know if you were going to use that in this episode, but you've actually done that in restaurants.
No, we can talk about it. I did tip pulling, but it wasn't shared with the kitchen because in Ohio, if you don't touch the guest for at least like 50% of your job, like you can't receive tips.
Oh, yeah, okay. And I wasn't aware of that. Okay,
right. And this goes into labor laws, and so check out with your attorney on a state-by-state basis where you're listening to. So it doesn't mean you can do it everywhere.
Some people out there have done this. Danny Meyer tried to do this.
Danny Meyer's the one that I've read extensively about, and he did it in New York City at a few of his restaurants.
Yeah, and it's been rocky. And Thomas Keller did it. He got sued because he was taking tip money and paying back at the house. He didn't check with his lawyer. And he lost like $400,000. I mean, this guy's amazing too. Like, this isn't just some guy.
Oh, I can tell you, if you get caught up in any of this litigation and talk to other local independent operators on employment claims, you want to make sure that you're doing this correctly, because even a technical violation can cost you hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, anytime you're messing with money, right? Like people's money, especially tips, like be careful. Yeah. But Alice Waters actually tried this back in the 70s or 80s. She started Chez Panisse out in Berkeley, which kind of started California cuisine, which is predicated on farm to table, kind of blew up in the American food scene. It was on its way, but she helped catapult this, and she's amazing. She's a culinary goddess. She did something called like the sustainable kitchen, where she dropped all tipping, service charge, and then everybody's on a similar salary. Okay. And from what I understand, it's been okay. I'm not sure if it's still running, but I remember reading about it as a kid, and I always thought it was a fascinating thing because it was, as a line cook, can I tell you how painful that is? I graduated from culinary school. I got a mountain of student debt, and I'm making $9 an hour on the pantry station. Meanwhile, the person across from me didn't graduate from high school, didn't do any work. This is their third year in the industry, and they're making $75K a year serving. Because they got a great personality. Yeah. And it feels like shit, right? Like, it's not good, but
and this is one of the things Danny Myers talks about is it goes into the sustainability of the back of house and how do we find good staff, and what does that look like, and do they have a living wage, and can they continue to work in the industry?
Yeah. It's a great point. And you guys know I scream from the rooftops, like, what are you doing for a competitive advantage with your employees? And I always think of cooks, especially because most operators we know are short on cooks. But what are you doing to separate yourself? Yeah. Are you offering these bonuses? Are you grinding your same cooks down the nubs 6-7 days a week and no raises because money's tight? And, oh, by the way, try not to get any overtime because that's expensive and I don't want to pay you that much. Like, what kind of message are you sending? Yeah. So what are you, a pack mule at this point, right? It's, you got to be careful with that.
No, it goes, how do you treat people? Do you have a welcoming environment that is designed for long-term success?
Yeah, no, it's good. So
where they're honoring the company and you're honoring the employee.
Yeah, it's a great point. look, when I think about Fix This, and I give this a lot of thought because I'm like, man, like this is a pandemic, so to speak, right? And maybe bad choice of words, but at the same time,
not bad choice, bad timing. Maybe.
Yeah, bad timing. Yeah. Bad choice for the time. Yeah, how's that? I think about things that restaurants that I've seen that have done it effectively, and I worked at one that I kind of came up on. They did this thing called staff meal or family meal. Have you guys ever seen this in restaurants before?
No, tell me about this.
So it's pretty popular in the fine dining world. You don't see it so much below segments, in lower tier segments. But what they do is this restaurant in particular, and most, if there was a lunch service, they would close down at say 2:30, 3 o'clock, and everybody come and get set up, start prepping, all that jazz. And then at 5 to 5:30 was a time where everybody sat down and ate dinner together, front and back of the house. It was required. You had to go sit in on a half-hour meeting every day. Everybody was intermingled. You had both sets of managers in there talking about daily issues to the entire staff, not just siloed staff or segregated staff. I felt that went such a long way. Unless the back of the house cooked a really shitty meal, then all of a sudden it was servers complaining about the quality of meal, like, oh, we're having this again. It became a problem. But
there's always the potential of the bitch fest when you bring it.
Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished.
Exactly,
right.
That's right, man. And it becomes counterintuitive. But I thought that the whole sense of community there and that sharing of ideas, sharing the daily specials and problematic things that restaurants deal with was incredibly engaging, inclusive to everybody, and they kind of felt like, okay, look, we're part of this one singular team. And I think you got to remind people of that again because of the natural silo that exists, right? Yeah. It's not just a bunch of pirates and mercenaries out there, servers being mercenaries and cooks being pirates. It's a team, and you should all be working towards achieving your one mission, whatever that is. And by the way, if you don't have a mission, please go get a mission statement and rally behind it and train everybody on it, or come to one of my seminars and I'll teach you how to do a mission statement because they're incredible.
Don't let that pass you by if you're listening to this episode and you're a local independent operator. Take Anthony up on this. Reach out to him. He is able to help you provide a mission to your team that will last much longer than the hour or 2 hours you spend with him. I mean, Anthony, you do a great job at this, and
thanks, brother.
I just want local independent operators to know that we're here to help them. Sometimes you can feel alone, but you're not alone. The team here at Hillcrest and Dave, Anthony, and I care about you and care about your success.
I tend to agree with that. Love is a verb, right, man? That's what I learned the other day. So other ways around this, training. I mean, listen, when you educate your staff and teach them how the entire machine works as opposed to just their department, there's been some examples of this. Cameron Mitchell down in Columbus did this thing called passing the plate, where he literally cross-trained all his employees. It was required if you were going to be a line cook, you would train in the front of the house for a few weeks.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Because it spreads empathy, right? Because until you're in their shoes, you don't understand the frustration,
No.
One thing they did at culinary school that I thought was pretty profound is we had to serve tables at culinary school. So that was both an educational from a technical aspect of serving. Also, I didn't realize at the time, but the empathy. First time I ever served a table. I ever tell you guys the story?
Yeah.
So the women's junior league comes into one of the restaurants on campus, 1946 Campus Drive, Hyde Park, New York. And I'm carrying my very first table, my very first order, very first time I ever served.
Okay.
The lady sits down. She's got her nice Fendi bag down on the floor. It's a $2,000 purse, $2,500 purse. I got 3 glasses of wine. I got an Iron Horse cuvee, and I got a Merlot. And I remember the Iron Horse because it was the first to go. And I forget, I had some Chardonnay, right? And I bent down to give her Iron Horse cuvee, and before I could get it off the tray, my tray tilted, and the Iron Horse cuvee, sparkling wine, nice wine, right in the Fendi bag. Broken glass, champagne all over the place. Right?
Oh, man. I'm not laughing. I'm not.
It's okay to laugh.
That sucks.
It's okay to laugh.
That sucks.
So immediately I'm flushed with embarrassment, shame, guilt, everything. And by the way, she was not nice. She's like, "What did you do?" Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "Look, I'm a student. I'm 22 years old. I don't know my ass from my elbow. Why are you yelling at me?"
Yeah.
So I got caught up in a moment. I used bad judgment. I bent over to try to salvage the wine glass out of the purse, and the other 2 wine glasses follow suit. Both of them go into the bag.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they went on her. Like you got the bag and then you got her.
She got splashed with the Merlot, stained her jeans, but the glasses into her Fendi bag. Now I got 3 broken glasses, Merlot,
But
cuvee.
you also have how many ounces of liquid in this purse?
Yeah.
That would have been great.
About 15.6.
Would have been great if you would put new glasses down and just took her purse and started pouring.
That's like a Three Stooges bit, right? But she yelled at me.
Fix this right up, ma'am.
Yeah. I've been yelled at by every chef in the world.
Yeah.
I had, and these guys were hard asses at the time up there too. It was very militaristic. Like the shit, they would send you home for not shaving and yell at you and make fun of you and blah, 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 right? I can take that abuse all day. This lady brought me to tears. I stepped outside and I had to collect myself. I went back in and I told my teacher, I'm done for the day. I'm going home. And he says, well, I can't grade you for the day. I said, that's fine. I'd rather take an F. Like, she had me so rattled. Wow. It was at that point I realized how hard serving was.
Yeah.
Because have you ever looked someone in the eye when you make that kind of mistake? Their delight turns into disappointment just like that. And oh, by the way, the university had to pick up the dry cleaning bill and the repair bill and the restoring that Fendi bag, which is not cheap, by the way. And she was cussing and screaming the whole way out the door. It was rough, man. It was rough. But, they taught me empathy, and I learned it loud and clear.
Yeah, it's rough, but looking back on it, that was a great experience.
Right.
I still remember the fucking type of wine it was and the brand name on it. So you talk about how impactful that experience was, right? It was incredible. But that made me realize early on that, like, serving's not easy. So I tended to err on the side of service.
And I love that idea of cross-training your staff and letting them know, like, again, what is it like to be, in that server's shoes, in that line cook's shoes? What is it like? I mean, and really provide them with the experience, because that's what helps us understand and have that sense of empathy.
Listen, the adage that walk a mile in my shoes has existed for so long for a reason, because it's profound and it's effective. I'm surprised restaurants don't do this, but we go back to training as an expense, not an investment mentality, right? And I think if you think of things through and you have your servers or your manager spend a couple days on the line with the cooks and vice versa, I mean, if you can get your cooks cleaned up enough to get out on the floor, I think it goes such a long way for helping bridging that divide. Also, too, I think management is the bridge of that divide.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, all this comes down to leadership, right?
Everything comes down to leadership, doesn't it?
Because again, we started this episode off that this is a natural, real thing. This happened naturally. This is set up to be divided. Okay?
But
the leader needs to bridge that.
Yeah.
Whether you're the owner, the GM, whatever the case may be.
Culture starts at the top, brother.
And it does, but I also see some organizations foster this competitive nature, and they want to divide, and they want to pit one group against the other to try to control them. Right. And I just think that is so juvenile and such weak management.
Yep.
So if you're listening to this and that's your move, I'm telling you, man, that's not built for long-term success. That's not built for you going from 1 unit to 2 units. That's not built for you surviving a pandemic. We are all in this together, and you need to, win as a team.
No, and when you sit down and really be honest with yourself and think about what Brian just said, 100%.
I couldn't agree more. Listen, when you're a good chef at a restaurant or a good kitchen manager, the people are there for you, right? Like, maybe it was the sign on the front that drew you in to apply or the paycheck, but we work and quit because of people, right? We work for and quit because of people.
You don't quit a company, you quit a manager.
So especially young and up and coming and very formidable young kid in the industry, you look up to your managers like they walk on water. Like, everything they say is and not always, but I know I did. I looked up to these chefs and I wanted to emulate their behavior, right? So when I see the chef yelling at a server because they have a slight modification to the mashed potatoes, like, oh, no parsley on top, and he's berating them in the middle of service, guess what? When it's my turn to expedite, guess what I do?
Yeah.
I perpetuate the cycles of abuse. I yell at the server for the same stuff, but then I think about it and I'm like, my God, like, the customer just asked for no chives on their potato. Like, that's not that hard.
No, it's like when you hear your son cuss. Like, he didn't learn that from watching TV. Like,
I learned it from watching you, Dad.
No, exactly. And then think about the duty and the responsibility you have as a manager, as a chef, as a leader. Yeah. Take that seriously. Yeah. Execute that.
It's like being a parent. People are watching 100% of the time. You're under a microscope.
100%.
So you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think that's probably maybe the most important takeaway of this is management has to look ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because we're setting the example for the rest of the staff, what's okay and what's not. We set the precedent.
Yep.
And, listen, when you're talking about your daily actions and setting that precedent, like, real-time corrective action is really important to this too. When you see that cook arguing with that server, don't just stand by.
Yeah.
Don't throw gas on that fire. Go extinguish that fire right now. Set the precedent for everybody watching. This is not going to be tolerated.
No.
Right? Team building exercises are fantastic. A little cheesy, I know, but holiday parties and things help people come together, right? Sometimes we hash some things out over a couple beers. We get real honest with each other. We clear some things up. Those can be helpful. It's a culture thing. And it starts at the top.
It does. And I love what you just said about hashing things out and talking about it. I was at a team meeting at another company, and the one person brought up a sensitive issue, and he had heard through the grapevine that another employee was thinking, and the fact that they had an airing of the grievances and talked about it and put that on the table, I loved it. I was just so impressed. I think that makes for a better team. It makes for a closer team and allows you to go to the next level.
That's what you do with family, right?
Yeah. No,
I've yelled at family, but at the end of the day, guess what? I still love them.
Yeah, no. And it doesn't mean you care for them any less.
Right. No, it's actually that you care for them more because you know that you can have that sort of candor in front of them, right?
Correct. I was talking to a lawyer yesterday, and this junior associate did something, and it was horrible, work product wise, horrible. And I go, well, did you follow up with him and coach him up? He goes, no, I had someone else correct it and it was done. It's like, yeah, but he never learned anything from that.
Yeah.
So like he thinks he's actually doing an okay job, but he's not.
That's a huge disservice.
It's a huge disservice. I was a little shocked. I was like, man, like that's why even pay the kid? You're not investing anything back into the person.
No, not at all. Actually, he's going to go 5 years from now and think he's something he's not.
Oh, yeah. In 5 years, he's going to make that same mistake, and it's going to be catastrophic.
Right. It's going to cost way more. Yeah. You just got me thinking about something I've been dwelling on recently. I saw this on social media, and I kind of person that tries to avoid controversy, tries to avoid confrontation. Like I don't love that, but I'm trying to get better at being candid and doing those things because it's important. But I saw this quote. It says, if you avoid conflict to keep the peace, you start a war inside yourself.
Yep.
True.
And that hit me really hard because I was like, you know what? Anytime I avoid that conflict or candid conversation, I do feel it inside, like the anxiety and the stuff inside, like it builds, where if I just would have had the conversation, addressed it, done that, you just, because normally it always goes better than you're thinking it's going to go in your head.
Oh,
always.
No.
Every time.
100%.
But you build it up as this big anxiety ball, like, I can't go into that. I can't go into that. I can't address him. Oh, he's going to fly off the handle. He's, you know what I mean? And
no, and employee needs to know that you're coming from a place of love.
That's the most important part of it.
It is. And that you want to make them better, but radical candor is amazing.
Check out Kim Scott on YouTube. She'll tell you all about it. Amazing talk she did on radical. Oh my God.
we're going to put that book in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely put that in the show notes. It's really good.
That 3 maybe 30, 40 seconds of that talk probably changed the way I think about things drastically. But I'm reading a book now, and they were talking about their organizational structure, and they really harp on culture. It's love, 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 love. But they have this thing called cuss and discuss, where they have the board meetings or they have their management meetings, and it's okay that everybody gets excited, and it's okay that everybody cusses, as long as they're hugging out the door, as long as the problem gets solved, right? So it's very much like a family atmosphere, and I absolutely love that because restaurants are very analogous to that. If you guys have worked in restaurants for a long period of time, you become family. Like when someone quits, it's sad.
It is, because you're all moving forward in this common goal and this common enterprise that again, you're spending more time with some of these people than you are your own family.
Most of the time, definitely.
I mean, like when's the last time you called Nana? Like you just spent 4 hours with Joe on the line cook. Like that's Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about the intimacy of that, and I think it's really important that we all work to build good cultures. And I know everyone gives that lip service, but think about what you're doing to build your culture and make it better.
Yeah, and think about what you're doing to perpetuate the worst culture too, and eliminate that stuff.
Exactly. What are you doing that is actually bad culture?
Yeah. Are you making fun of the servers in front of the cooks, and vice versa, that sort of thing? Because you might be a problem. You might be the chisel that's driving this wedge apart, right? And you got to be the opposite. You got to be building bridges everywhere you can. Because I promise you, the best restaurants that I see are the ones that work most cohesively together. The ones that have that harmony and grace between front and back of the house.
No, I agree. Awesome. Great topic, Anthony.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man. It's something that's been on my mind for a while. I was glad to talk about it.
Okay. Who's going to wrap it up? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. That's
it's Toto.
Okay. I love that.
No, Anthony, thanks so much, man. This was something that we've all been kind of discussing on the side for a long time. And I know it's been brewing in your brain forever, so I'm glad to finally get it out. This was, great info. Check out the show notes on restauranttopia.com. Make sure, if you're a local independent operator, visit hillcrestfoods.com. Check them out. They'll be a great partner for your business. And thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Those are great closeout, Dave.
This is a high quality pod. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Adios.
Thank you for listening to Restauranttopia. The gratitude that we have for each and every one of you spending your precious time to listen to this podcast is immeasurable. Please make sure to tell a friend about this podcast. And also, if you have any feedback for us, visit us on restauranttopia.com and drop us a line. You can also subscribe on your favorite place to listen to podcasts. Thank you, and have a great day.
You guys are a tough crowd today, by the way.
No,
I got riddles and fun facts, and there's not a lot going on. My audience, I lost them. I needed more hashtags. I need to be more engaging, focus more on my process.
I read a book about podcasting, and they said it's all about the good content.
Yeah, it's all about, I got to work on my content then. There's no question.
We got the content. Sometimes our delivery is shaky.
Not after you edit it.
That's it.